Hi, I'm Professor Tina Good, and this mini video is on how to proofread your essays. You know, as an English professor, I am always telling students, proofread carefully, proofread carefully. But it occurs to me after talking to many of my students that you may actually not have been taught how to proofread. So this video, along with the PowerPoint, will give you some strategies you might try when proofreading your next essay. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now so we can go through this PowerPoint together. How to proofread your essay. Sometimes there is confusion that proofreading and revision are the same thing. Revision and proofreading are not synonymous. In fact, revision is a completely different process that you do after you have completed your entire essay, including proofreading. In my class, you can actually submit an essay that's once been graded with a revision for an improved grade. However, because proofreading is not revision, if you only change proofreading errors in your essay, it will not be accepted as a revision. Proofreading, therefore, is more of the last step of your initial writing process. It is what we might call a polishing, where we check for grammar and spelling and punctuation, where we check our paragraph structure, where we make sure that we've actually answered the question that the essay prompt requires, and that we check our formatting, making sure that we have the right font, the right spacing, page numbers, titles, etc. All of these things are polishing and yet very, very important for making meaning in your essay. So what are some of the strategies we can use? Reading through your essay once you have completed writing it is not proofreading. While you should, of course, do this, it is simply the last step of your initial generation and creation of ideas. Many students tell me they don't even like to do this, that once they have completed their essay, they are done and they don't want to read it again. I understand that, but if you don't want to read your essay, why would anybody else? So do this, but understand that you are checking for content and inconsistencies. It is not the same as proofreading. Proofreading is actually something you should do after you walk away from your essay. In fact, the experts say that if you could actually go to it the next day after you've slept, you will actually be better at proofreading. This is not always possible, but there is something about sleeping that seems to reawaken your eye to your writing. So even if you could sleep for an hour and come back to it, then that would be preferred. However, sometimes you just can't get in sleeping. And so if you could just even walk away from your essay for at least an hour and then come back to it before starting your proofreading, you will find that you're much more effective at proofreading. So once you start your proofreading, what might you do? One of the first things we tell people is proofread backwards. What so often happens is all of our energy goes into the beginning of our essays, and by the time we get to the end, we are exhausted. And so often we proofread from beginning to end, and again, by the time we get to the end, we are exhausted and not catching our errors. So proofread backwards. Start with your conclusion and work up your essay, looking for confusing sentences, grammar inconsistencies, spelling errors, punctuation errors, etc. Once you do that, you might also consider reading your essay aloud, particularly to native English speakers, if this is possible. If it is not, you can just read it aloud to yourself, and if you stumble over words or get lost, there's probably something that needs to be made clearer or more concise in your language. Check the rubric in the essay assignment and verify that all formatting and content requirements have been met. For example, in this class, use the TIE formula to verify your paragraph structure and citation format. If somehow you've skipped a step in one of your paragraphs, this is the time to correct that. Now, this is where it gets really personal, and that is you need to be aware of your own grammar punctuation, spelling errors. And you will need to proofread each time, one time for each of those errors. So for example, if you constantly mix up woman, the singular, M-A-N, with women, the plural, with M-E-N, you need to go through your essay just looking for that error. You can do a search and find if using a Microsoft Word, but if that's your problem, you need to proofread just for that particular error. For example, for me, I don't know why, but when I type and, a lot of times the D gets dropped. So I have to go through and proofread, do a search and find every single and make sure that it should not be and. I have to do that in one step of the proofread. Perhaps you also make run-on sentences. So then in a separate proofread, you will need to go through and look for run-on sentences. I, for example, tend to write many long and confusing sentences. So I have to do a proofread where I go through, look for long sentences, and make sure that they are as clear as possible, even by rewriting them into 2 or 3 shorter sentences. So know what your own problems are and understand that you need to proofread your essay each time for each error. You cannot proofread for everything. Your eye will not pick that up. But if you are looking for a specific thing, you're likely to correct it. As I said, proofreading is not revision, but it is a part of polishing your essay. It is a deliberative process that takes some time, almost half the time you took to write the essay sometimes. So be sure to allow for proofreading time when working to meet your deadline. If your deadline is on Sunday and it took you 2 days to write the essay, you need to allow for Saturday to proofread that essay, okay? I hope you find this video useful. Good luck with your essays. I look forward to reading them.